Today we're going to talk about another one of the really important key theorems that we will use throughout the rest of differential and integral calculus, which is the idea of a mean value theorem. So we're going to tackle both that today, and we're also going to talk about how that impacts increasing and decreasing functions. So again, this is a review of something that we talked about in AB Calc, but something that's fundamental, foundational for what we'll be doing as we move forward in BC. So the mean value theorem is the only one of our theorems that requires both continuity and differentiability. So we have to be both continuous on the closed interval and differentiable. It's the only one that requires both. So we've got the IVT, the EVT. Now we have the mean value theorem, or the MVT. And requiring both, you have to establish that the function is differentiable. So that means no corners, no cusps, no vertical tangents, and no points of discontinuity. Once you've established that, then the mean value theorem is applicable on that interval. Now the format for the mean value theorem, you can see that, but what I want to really emphasize is what the meaning of it is. We've got two definitions of slope going on here. We've got the tangent slope, which is the slope at a single point. And we're going to compare that to, we have the secant slope here, which is the slope along 2 points. And I want to emphasize that these two things are equal to each other, that's what the MVT guarantees. The equality of a tangent slope at a single point being equal to a secant slope that connects 2 points. And the equality of two slopes means that the two lines are parallel, that there have to be points that are parallel that you can find on any differentiable function. So here's an example of a differentiable function. It's x squared, it's parabola, of course, it's differentiable, it's continuous and has no corners, cusps, or vertical tangents. So the mean value theorem should apply. And so we want to find the value of the secant slope that connects the origin to the point 2, 2. So we'll find the value of that slope. And the MVT guarantees that at least one other position that there is a parallel slope. Okay, so the graph shows that that's 1, 1, but we're going to prove it using the mean value theorem. So we solve it as follows. We find the tangent slope, which is 2x, so it's the derivative of the parabola. And then we're going to set that equal to the value of the secant slope, which would be f of 2 minus f of 0 over 2 minus 0. So we're looking at 4 over 2. So 2x equals 1. So 2x equals 2. So x equals 1. And that corresponds to the position of the point where you would have a parallel line segment, a parallel tangent line. So the mean value theorem guarantees that that will happen at least once on a graph, if not multiple times, if the function is closed and differentiable. So if those are the requirements for the mean value theorem, let's see whether or not it would apply in each of these situations. So we've got the function of x to the 2/3. This function has a cusp at the origin, so the function comes down like this. And so the mean value theorem does not apply because the function is not differentiable on the interval that we're talking about. Okay, next one, x minus 1. Okay, we all should know that that is going to put us with an absolute value, 1 to the right. And so again, the MVT does not apply because our differentiability doesn't pass within the interval. We've got a corner. The next function is a hyperbola. The hyperbola is going to have an asymptote. Here's 0, and then here's 5. So we're going to have an asymptote 5 to the right. And then we're going to have another horizontal asymptote at the number 1. And so then we've got these two branches. And so then does the MVT apply here? And I'm going to argue that the MVT does apply, even though we have a discontinuity. The discontinuity happens outside of the interval. The interval is -3 to 3. My discontinuity is happening at the number 5, and so the MVT does apply in this situation, and so I would be able to find a place where the tangent slope and the secant slope were equal. The next hyperbola has its asymptote at the number 2. And so because it has its asymptote at the number 2, then the MVT is not going to apply because the asymptote is within the interval -3 to 3. So we've got the MVT does not apply because the discontinuity is happening within the interval -3 to 3. Sometimes we'll talk about the mean value theorem as it relates to a table. And so if you're given values of a table, it's important for you to understand that the function is differentiable. And the fact that it's differentiable means that it was continuous. And so the mean value theorem does guarantee. And so we're wondering, how many does it guarantee? It's going to guarantee at least 1, but what's the fewest possible number of values that are guaranteed so that the derivative would be guaranteed to be parallel to 4 or have a slope value of 4. So we want to look at the value of the function, and we want to look at what its derivative values are. So between 13 and 5, we want to estimate what the slope is. So these aren't going to be exact derivative values, but we'll estimate. And so when we find the slope values, remember we're just going to do 5 minus 13 over 2 minus 0. So we're looking at -8 over 2. So that would be -4, have a negative value. Then we have our next approximate value of the slope. So we'll have 17 minus 5. That's 12 over 3. So we're looking at +4. And then we're going to estimate the next value of the slope. So we'll have 28 minus 17. So it's 11 over 2. 11 over 2, 5.5. And then we'll have 13 over 4, which is 3.25. All right, so how many times was the mean value theorem going to guarantee that the slope would be actually equal to 4? So we do see a spot where the slope is equal to 4, but we're passing from positive numbers to negative numbers. So we're going from a positive slope, a negative slope to a positive slope. So we're passing through the number 4. So we're guaranteed at least 1 time there. And then we're going to go back down to a value of 3.25, which is lower than the number of 4. So we're actually using the IVT to answer this question about the MVT. We've got values that are on opposite sides of the number 4. Okay, we don't necessarily need to look at the number 4. We want to look for values on the opposite sides. And so we've got a couple different options of them being on the way 2. We're going to, because those f prime values are going from less than 4 to something that's greater than 4 and then something that's less than 4 again. The answer is 2 is the fewest. Now there might be more. Right, because the values of f prime alternate from below to above, or we can say from less than 4 to greater than 4, and vice versa, twice. And we have to say, okay, the differentiable guarantees that for us, because if we're differentiable, then we're also continuous. So we need differentiability for the mean value theorem. We need continuity, which is implied, for the IVT. So the IVT guarantees f prime of x to be equal to 4 twice, at least. That is the least, the fewest. Visually, the mean value theorem looks like a bunch of little mini tangent lines. And so if you're looking at the slope connecting the closed circle going from 0 to 12, we can see visually that we've got 2 points of tangency that are guaranteed to also have that same parallel slope value. And so what are the values that guarantee that? We're looking at values of x is 2. That's right there. And then we're looking at the value of x is 9. Okay, one other way we might use the mean value theorem is by comparing it to another function. So here we have a table that's giving us f values, and then we have a function that is being defined, the derivative being defined as h, and we are given the h derivative. We're not given the original h function, we're only given the derivative. What we're asked for is on this closed interval from 0 to 4, does the instantaneous rate of change of h, in other words, does h prime, equal the average rate of change of f? So the instantaneous rate of change of h, that's h of x, does that equal the average rate of change, that's f of 4, minus f of 0 over 4 minus 0? So will 4x e to the x equal, and then we get f of 4, so 7 minus negative 1 over 4 minus 0. So that implies that 4x e to the x is going to be equal to 8 over 4, or 2. And we can simplify that by dividing both sides by 2, but I don't know that that's gonna, you know what, I'll do this. 4 e to the x minus 2 should be equal to 0. At this point, you're gonna solve the rest of this with your graphing calculator. So you're gonna take and graph the function and see where it crosses the x-axis. My quick sketch shows me that I've got a function that starts out in quadrant 3 and then crosses the x-axis between 0 and 1. So my calculator tells me that that 0 is 0.3517 or 0.352. The last thing we want to do in this lesson is something that's going to be really familiar to you. It's determining when functions increase and then change to decreasing. And so they have to do with when the derivative is associated with positive or negative values. And so you'll remember from last year where we made intervals, and then we've tested different derivative values in that interval, and we were looking for changes that happened. And every time, so the change being the key word, so that when derivative values are positive, then we can say that the function increases, and when derivative values are negative, we can say that the function decreases, and when there is a change from one to the other, then we can say that there's either a maximum or a minimum. So just a quick review of how that's going to work without your calculator. So this is analytically. When we want to investigate the first derivative, so we'll take 6x squared minus 12. We're going to factor that. And then we're going to set that equal to 0. So we're going to get plus or minus rad 2. So that's going to determine what our intervals are. And so our intervals being x less than negative rad 2, and then between negative rad 2 and positive rad 2, and then x greater than rad 2. And then we're going to check the first derivative values by choosing something. So I might choose like negative 10, for example, something that's wildly within that interval. And when I check the value in the derivative and I put negative 10 in, I'm going to get a positive value. So that would indicate that that interval is an increasing interval for the function. I'm going to check 0 for my center value. I plug that into the derivative. I'm going to clearly get a negative number. And then I check something in the positive value. I'll pick positive 10 this time, and that's going to give me. And so then we can claim where the function is increasing and decreasing.